My name is Phil Wolfson. I'm the CEO of the Ketamine Research Foundation, and I am very pleased to host a discussion today of one of our major research projects, which is called Conscious Dying, Conscious Living. And it's a project about studying ketamine amongst people who are facing death with a year or less left to live as expectancy, and to help people move through the process of dying. So dying in a quality way as much as possible. I'd like to introduce members of our group. We have a 5-site group across the country. And let me begin with Julane Andries.
Hi, I am Julane Andries, and thank you, Phil, and all of you all for having me here and for being here. I'm a marriage family therapist, and I work and live in Marin County, California. And my background that's relevant is that I currently do clinical work with ketamine, and Phil and I started a ketamine-assisted psychotherapy protocol about 4.5 years ago. I also worked on a phase 2 MDMA study using MDMA for the anxiety of life-threatening illness, which was an incredible experience and led me to where I am today with this group of people.
Rob?
Hello, it's just a pleasure to be here. I came to this work I'm presently the Associate Medical Director of Hospice of the East Bay. I actually started my medical career delivering babies and bringing new life into the world. And at the age of 49, I was diagnosed with melanoma. And ultimately that became stage 4, and I had less than a year to live. And it turned out that I happened to be a very lucky person, and I received a breakthrough immunotherapy that prolonged my life, and I'm here today, well into my 60s. And during the course of having that cancer, I became very preoccupied with the anxiety associated with end of life. And for the last 10 years, I had been working at Hospice of the East Bay, trying to ease the suffering of people as they're facing terminal illness. I'm deeply committed to the notion that psychedelics can provide a form of ease and continuity and in facing the end of our existence on the planet. And I am convinced that any work that we can do to help assuage the anxiety that people feel as they're moving towards the end of life is an extremely important thing. That's why I'm part of this project, and I'm so pleased to be here in this discussion.
Lisa?
Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here today. My name is Lisa Yeager, and I am a clinical licensed social worker. And I've been working in the realm of hospice for the last 12 years. When I read about the studies at Johns Hopkins and NYU and UCLA about how psychedelics, specifically psilocybin, were being used to help alleviate end-of-life distress, it set me on a path to go to the California Institute of Integral Studies and get my certificate as a certified psychedelic psychotherapist, with the goal of being able to work with these different medicines to help people who have a life-limiting or a terminal illness with alleviating their end-of-life distress. And I'm really excited to be a part of this program in collaboration with Hospice of the Northwest, which is in Mount Vernon, Washington, and really looking forward to being able to offer this opportunity to clients who are going to participate in this study through our hospice.
Thank you. Reed?
Hi, my name's Reed Robison. I'm a psychiatrist based in Utah. I've been working with ketamine for about 10 years or so. My background is in clinical trials and started doing ketamine studies in 2011. And I've worked clinically with individuals facing this sacred passage at end of life, and on end-of-life anxiety issues, and have realized through that work that we need more support, more emotional and spiritual assistance. And I'm really thrilled about this study that Phil has graciously involved us in, to help identify some tools for helping people find peace within at this important time of their lives. And so I'm just honored to be here. Thank you.
We have two other groups participating, Scott Shannon's group in Fort Collins, who are unable to be with us, and a fifth group at University of South Carolina, Charleston, the Department of Psychiatry with Jennifer Jones and Bob Malcolm. So we are at the moment a 5-site study. We may well be a 6-site study. Let me share my screen of the title of our study. And I'll begin to just give you a little bit about it. So there's a long and profound interest in helping people who are dying with alternative substances. It probably began even before LSD with mescaline, and probably even before that during the early days of nitrous oxide. We don't have much data on that, but we know that there have been two aspects to it. One has been the desire to assist people in leaving this life as comfortably as possible and as consciously as possible. And of course, we have the Aldous Huxley example of leaving in a cloud of psilocybin on his way to the next horizon as a model for many people in terms of seeing a different reality as they pass on. There were studies with LSD during its legal period. There has been a study with MDMA, which Julane and I were pleased to be hosting and participating in. And part of that came out of my own personal experience in losing my oldest son, who was near 17. And during the legal period of MDMA, he was an adolescent. He was not personally assisted by it, but we as a family were, and I wrote about it. And so it has moved further with the Hopkins study on life-threatening illness using psilocybin, and there are studies growing to do this because ketamine is not as a substance we can use legally. We do not have to go through an FDA protocol in order to be able to use this work. We have to go through an institutional review board. So we have the opportunity to really create an experience about conscious dying so that people who still are alive in themselves but are facing a death sentence can be availed by this experience. So let's move to others to talk about the nature of the study and their view of it.
Phil, can you take off the title so we can see?
Well, I'm going to pull it down a little bit so we can see the purpose. But
and just so you guys know, we'll be able to edit what I'm saying right now out.
Well, the least we do of that, the better. So the nature of the study has involved developing a new tool, an assessment tool. How do you measure change from beginning to end of a study? And Rob and I in particular have developed a thing we call the end of life inventory. When you develop a new assessment tool, you have to validate it. So we're in the phase of validating that study, that instrument, so that we may be able to use it as a defining way of assessing change from start to finish.
Yeah, what I would say in relationship to my thoughts about the study is that my first experience with a patient facing end of life who was clearly had a prognosis of probably less than 2 or 3 days, when I was sitting attempting to have a deep supportive conversation about how he was feeling about his situation, he explained to me that he was wondering whether the cancer that he was suffering from might kill him. And this was a man who probably was 6'2" and probably weighed less than 110 pounds and deeply ecteric. And that conversation was profoundly disturbing to me, because I realized that this person, despite the fact that had gone through a long cancer journey, he, at the end of the journey, was in profound and deep denial as to where he was in his own personal journey towards the completion of his life. And the problem with that denial is that he was closing off himself from the opportunity of the growth that he might be able to experience with his family and with his friends as he was entering this new part of his journey. And I realized that this person had perhaps deliberately or unconsciously blinded himself to the opportunity of death because it was too overwhelming. And I am convinced that, certainly from my past experience with people that have, with both myself and other people that have used psychedelics, their understanding of what perhaps this might mean was a much more eased. Patients were less, my friends and myself were eased by the notion of what was actually really happening in the process of their movement from this life into whatever comes next. And I realized that this was a person that was in such profound fear about his situation that he was unable to absorb it and chose the path of denial. I'm convinced that this final section in our lives can be an opportunity for great growth and great communication between our relatives and our loved ones. And and the opportunity to help people enter this path with eyes wide open, to know where they are in their transition, I think potentially is a great and important process.
And Rob, thank you for that. And I think just for everybody watching this, what we want to do is give heart to this research project so that you can understand the power of psychedelics, and the one that we're using is ketamine. I have many stories, one that has nothing really to do with somebody facing death, but what made me realize how important this medicine can be towards that is one of the profound things that happen with a ketamine experience is the absence of fear. Sometimes people can be fearful with psychedelics, but in general, people relax, they have a sense of peace, and there's rarely a negative emotion, and there is an absence of fear. Many people will have what I call a near-death experience, meaning an experience while they're having a ketamine experience where they feel that they understand life and they also understand death. They understand universal connection. Sometimes they feel that they're merging with the universe. When they come back and I help elicit some of these experiences, they often will tell me that I felt like I was dying, maybe I would never come back, and I was okay. And just those little words, and I was okay. What I help them what I help is I tell them to remember that, and it's something profound that they can remember their whole life. And as their time towards death comes, it will come with more ease. I've had many experiences with people, and one I did give my own mother. She was approaching death, ketamine, and she was a very childlike Catholic that certainly believed in heaven and hell and all of that. And one thing that all of us people work with this population, we know to know where what somebody's spiritual beliefs are, religious beliefs. Those conversations are sometimes difficult for others to have, but we want to be very comfortable in having those conversations. And for my mother, who had had a lot of tragedies, and she had a real fear and not wanting to die. And her experience, she actually thought she was in heaven. It was very beautiful. She told me she could hear angels singing. And after that, and as she approached, over the next 6 months around death, there was no fear. She got ready. She didn't really want to talk about it. She didn't want to really talk about death, but there was a calmness and an acceptance and even a happiness as that time came. So I realized that the medicine that we're using, that we're talking about today, is such a beautiful, beautiful tool that can help many people.
Thank you for that. We should remark that ketamine is a very safe substance, and we've used it in people who are stricken in a variety of ways with serious health conditions. We've also used it with people facing death. We had an apocryphal experience that was early on in our use of ketamine, where we were asked to do an at-home session with a woman who had been a professor of religious studies at Berkeley and was facing death from pancreatic cancer, but had still her full consciousness. And we went to her house and, with her husband's presence, helped her with a ketamine experience, including music. And her intention, as we always asked, was that with all her life as a Hindu practitioner and all her life as a teacher of religious studies, she had never really felt a sense of contact with God. And if she could have that experience, she would feel a great sense of relief and peace. And so we did this experience. It was gentle and loving and kind. And when she came out of it, she was alighted. She was illuminated and alive. And her first words were, "I saw God." Now, we don't guarantee that for people, but it was apocryphal and meaningful. And from there, we've done many other sessions, and they've inspired us to do this study.
Well, that's beautiful. And Phil and Rob, there's a question I've had, I'm wondering if you can weigh in on about the ELI, the end of life inventory scale. We're talking about, one of the items says, "I am prepared for death." And it just brings up the question for me is, how does one prepare to die, or how do we confront our fears of mortality in general? Wondering if anyone has thoughts on that.
So remember, that's not a yes or no question.
Yeah.
It's a question of degree, right? And
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people do come to some peace with death. We've been talking about it in preparation for the K-Dome microdome with people. A lot of people with experiences of psychedelics have a sense of having left their concerns about dying and having experiences that transcend kind of fear and the sense that this life is permanent and move to a sense of its impermanence. So there's no guarantee of that, but within the framework of what we're trying to provide is a sense of two experiences with ketamine in an integrated month-long set of sessions that allows people to look at their concerns, have time to voice them, have time to have a therapeutic experience, both with medicine and with integration, that allows them to come to their own particular views of what it means for them to die, their feelings about death, their feelings about leaving people behind, the way they live their lives. Because death brings up everything. It brings up all our negativities or our wants or unfinished business and, you know, a desire either to make peace or to shout it out before we go. So we don't have a point of view in the study that says this is the way to die. What we have a point of view is, how do you feel in your process of examining and being with the end of your life, which is inevitable now, and you know it.
I would say that one of the best ways, I think, to be prepared for dying is to live fully. And I think that to embrace our mortality is to, and to recognize that our mortality propels us through life, recognizing that every moment is transitory, recognizing that this experience right now is fleeting, and that we have to pursue our lives fully. And also at the same time, I think speaking to what Phil is discussing is this idea that we have to recognize as we're in this process of transitioning, as we're completing our lives, we have to actually recognize the landscape in which we find ourselves. So often I see hospice patients that have not really been fully informed of where they are in their journey. They're looking around themselves and realizing, and they're putting the pieces slowly together as to, this is my life. And so an exploration of the meaning of that life. What did you do? What did you accomplish? What is your legacy? What was this life about? These questions provide meaning for us. And it is in the context of meaning that we put everything together. And it is, and ketamine can give us a tool to help people, first of all, calm themselves enough to recognize the landscape, and then recognize that the landscape may be even more profound than what has appeared to us in normal mind. And it may offer a window to see things deeper in a way that helps us get to what Julane is talking about, is the idea that it's okay. And ultimately, when I sit at the bedside of someone that may be passing, that is a fundamental sacred phrase to say to someone, it's okay. And when a person can actually hear that, that's reassurance that's deeply valuable.
Thank you. I want to welcome Bob Malcolm from University of South Carolina, Charleston, to
Thank you.
group. Welcome.
I had trouble signing in, but I'm on board. Thank you.
We're glad you're on board. Any other comments?
Would you like to introduce yourself, Bob?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you like to introduce yourself? Tell the audience who you are.
Oh, I'm Bob Malcolm, Professor of Psychiatry, Family Medicine, and Pediatrics, Associate Dean for Continuing Medical Education at the Medical University of South Carolina.
Thank you.
You said that in one breath. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Great to have you.
Thank you.
So we're just talking about what we hope to achieve in this. So just a description of the ketamine experience, so it makes some sense of why we would think this would work. And remember, this is a pilot study, consists of 18 subjects in each of the 5 sites and 6 subjects who are randomly put into a naturalistic program where we look at the beginning and the end over the same time period of where they've gone without the input of the ketamine-assisted psychotherapy program. Well, the essence of ketamine experience, and we can elaborate on it, is a timeout. So here you are, you're facing the end of your life, you've gotten a death sentence, you're all messed up, you're confused in this example. How should I leave my will? Who should I leave it to? Oh, how do I say goodbye? I hate leaving. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. Myriad concerns. And you have a ketamine experience with preparation, and you have a break from all of that. You have an experience of a liberated space where you're not thinking about all those things. And there's a stoppage in the obsession of moving towards death. And then you come back from that experience, which is not terribly long, it's an hour or more, and you come back and you've had a period where you haven't had to think about all of that, where you've had other experiences of a journey nature. And those experiences give you a different sense of life. You come back, we're in an integration position with the person, talking about that experience, what they've learned from it, taking a break, and then being really able to reevaluate and refeel who I am from before to now. And we repeat that again with the same integration and then a follow-up. So it's an opportunity to suspend those concerns and obsessions, to relook at them, and to come to a more heartful position with yourself. Please add to that.
So,
You know, I would say that having a signature of just an hour is a very, it's a manageable period of time. And for patients that may be frail at the end of life and may have medical issues, to embark on being in a state outside of normal mind for such a manageable period of time, both for the patient and the therapist, to be able to give full attention to the patient at that time, I think is a signature that lends itself profoundly to this work.
There's another aspect to this which I want to enunciate. This is a pilot study, meaning that we would like this to work. We'll see how well it works. And we hope it will inform practices with palliative care, oncological practices, and hospice care, so that there is a more humane and deeper approach to human beings who are facing the end of their lives, with a place for them to express themselves and have experiences that really assist the process of moving towards one's death.
So if I may too, for those in the audience that may be a bit unfamiliar with what ketamine, how it works, what one feels, one of the main reasons we use it in our clinical population, as well as everyone up here, is that it's an amazingly effective medicine for depression and anxiety. So even though in our research study, people will be having 2 sessions of ketamine, even that, because the way we're using it, they may have a reduction of depression and anxiety because of the medicine itself, as well as the transformative arena that they go into with the medicine. So having a relief of symptoms for a time after they have their session, and having an absolute letting go, which happens with ketamine, one within a few minutes, leaves the realm that one is in. There's still an I, a you in there, but you are free of body, you're free of worries, you're free of your ego constraints, and everyone's journey is unique and different. And then people come back, they gradually start feeling themselves again and coming back to their body. So those are some of the reasons that, and we see how effective, all of us have seen how effective it is in helping people. So that's a little bit about what it's like, and I'm sure people here might want to add to that.
Well, one other aspect of the program is that each center is going to have a training of 4 days duration, with all of us coming together, even during COVID. In some manner, we have to work it out so that we have a unity of effort and interest and outcome, and a unity of our assessments in terms of being able to look at the effectiveness of our work. So we're very excited to look forward to getting together, bringing our staffs together to create the training for the process that we're about to embark on.
I think many of us have lost family members either at a young age or at the end of their life. And many times people are in pain or having trouble with shortness of breath or other things related to anxiety and depression that engenders those things. And many times morphine and medications like that are used. And I think that often takes away from our contact with our loved ones at the end of their life. And they may be kind of obtunded or having trouble expressing themselves. And I think this pathway will be so much better for so many people.
So any other concluding comments, and then we'll talk about our needs for financial support.
Well, I just wanted to I know that Lisa had tried to speak a couple of times, but just to bring the spotlight on her.
We at our hospice are very much looking forward to seeing a time when this is a tool that can be offered to patients who are facing end of life. Hospice is a interdisciplinary approach where there are nurses, attending physicians, spiritual care, and social work as a part of the team that's offering support. And spiritual care and social workers can be positioned to be able to sit with patients who are interested and appropriate to have this type of therapy. They often have already established a rapport with the patient and with the family. And for those sites that are hospices, will be able to offer this pilot study in their own home, where they will feel safe and comfortable, and they'll have their support system in the background that can be there for support for them after the ketamine session is over with. And we're really hoping that that is going to open the opportunity for healing for the person who is facing end of life, but there's also the potential for great healing within the family system as well, possibly opening up the opportunity for the patient and family to have some very meaningful, important dialogues before that person dies.
Very well said.
I couldn't agree with that more. I think to have a tool outside of benzodiazepines and opiates to help open people up to the opportunity of communication is so healing, not just to the patient and not just to the patient experiencing the illness, but obviously in hospice we view our patients as being not just the person that's dying, but the entire family unit who is experiencing that person's death. And this can be a very profound tool to help open up that communication that you're speaking about.
Thank you. Well, we are sponsoring it. The we is the Ketamine Research Foundation. We are a nonprofit 501c3. We need your support for this. We are not looking for the kind of support needed for an FDA program like MAPS is unfortunately having to incur, but we need decent support so that we can run our programs effectively. This is free to patients. We're not charging anyone. And we are all pitching in to help support the program. So donations would be very lovingly accepted. We've had some to begin with, and we're moving on and happy to be doing this. I think we're all very excited to start the program. We hope we'll get going despite COVID in October. And so we would deeply appreciate any and all support from those of you interested in our program. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with the Infinite Playa and the K-Dome and the Microdome. See you around. We'll be on other things. Have a good time with the program.